as John Paul said, I am Jeff Ward, and I'm here to talk to you about Bitcoin.js and the blockchain and Web 3.0. Now, actually, this talk is mostly just about Bitcoin because the Bitcoin.js library is actually rather small and simple to use. You just have to kind of get your head around Bitcoin first. So, digital currencies. Digital currencies have been around for a while. Each is an attempt to use money natively on the internet, either for general use or a specific domain. Otherwise, payment processors are necessary for each transaction as a trusted third party for transaction disputes. So some of these would include Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Venmo. Interestingly enough, PayPal just 2 days ago announced support for Bitcoin. And also the timing is interesting because people are asking the same question around Apple Pay. So I think it's, the timing is right, and I'm looking forward to seeing more innovation. So as for digital currencies, you probably know some of these. You have Reddit Gold, Facebook credits, eGold, which I think went bankrupt at some point. They got sued. It was a pretty big thing. WebMoney and Liberty Reserve as well. Those I think are defunct now. And the main takeaway of all these is that these are all forms of centralization of currency and processing to the benefit of the issuing and processing companies, which means ultimately they can be seized by the government or hacked by attackers at any point. So the whole idea is that centralization is bad. This can kind of apply to almost any company that can be subject to DDoS attacks, lost information, companies that are getting credit card data stolen all the time. So cryptocurrency as a definition, this will make your head explode. Cryptocurrency is a type of digital token that relies on cryptography for chaining together digital signatures of token transfers through peer-to-peer networking, which is secured by decentralization of consensus and trust. And if you're like me, when you read that, you're probably like, what on earth is that? And I have a video. Now, fair warning, it's a little bit edgy, but and also a little bit old. But I think it provides the maximum amount of information for Bitcoin that you could possibly get, and your eyebrows will definitely kind of raise at this one. All right.
The world is in financial disarray. Currencies failing, economies in wild flux, jobs being lost. But what if you could build an entirely new economy, one specifically designed for the digital realm? Well, that is the dream behind Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a decentralized electronic cash system that uses peer-to-peer networking along with digital signatures and cryptographics to generate currency. Now, with traditional money, think dollars, the euro, pesos, you've got a central bank, like the Federal Reserve. They issue the currency and they print more or less cash as needed, but not with Bitcoin. Bitcoins are generated using a process called mining. Your computer is given a complex mathematical problem to solve, and the goal is a 64-digit number. If your grey box can successfully solve that algorithm, then congratulations, you are the proud owner of a new block of 50 Bitcoins. The network automatically adjusts the difficulty of mining so that 50 Bitcoins are created roughly every 10 minutes. The reason they call it mining is because there's a set number of Bitcoins that can ever be mined in the system. There's only 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be created in total. You can't just print off cash like they do in the real world. You're digging it out of the system like precious metals from some mathematical mine. Right now, a Bitcoin is roughly worth $70 US. Last year, miners generated the equivalent of $16.7 million worth of Bitcoins, and we're only halfway down the mine shaft with over 10 million Bitcoins unearthed already. Like any economy, you don't want too much too fast because then the value of your currency drops, or so slow that your economy grounds to a halt. It's designed to be a self-stabilizing economy. Whether it actually is that way though, well, that is a little bit more complicated. Welcome to the exchanges. These exchanges allow people to buy and sell Bitcoins with each other. The largest Bitcoin exchange is Mt. Gox. And it's here that you can purchase Bitcoins using local currencies. You can even store Bitcoins too. Mind you, that can be a bit risky. Hackers have, on occasion, dangerously destabilised these exchanges. Bitcoin is also the currency that fuels what's known as the dark web. Using software called Tor, you can hide your identity online and access the digital marketplace they call the Silk Road, where sellers flog illegal drugs like LSD, heroin and marijuana. Buyers conduct all transactions using Bitcoin. The influence of Bitcoin is growing. WikiLeaks and WordPress will accept Bitcoin as cash. Even the ideas behind Bitcoin are already changing the way people think about cash. The Royal Canadian Mint have just launched MintChip, an electronic currency backed by the Canadian government that borrows a lot from the philosophy of Bitcoin. And ultimately, that is what's most powerful about Bitcoin. Not the coins itself, but the way it can change the way we look at, think about, and most importantly, spend our money.
All right, so now you're all experts, right? Yes? Okay, got it, cool. All right. So, some of the corrections to the video. Mt. Gox was famously hacked and shut down after losing $500 million. The current price is about $475, maybe $480, somewhere around $500. The top price was $1,200 in November when people realized, what the potential was, equating it to gold. And the algorithm governing Bitcoin has reached the first halving point, so now 25 Bitcoins are issued every 10 minutes. I'm not sure where we're at in the difficulty rate yet, may half again, and 13+ million Bitcoins have been mined as of today. So again, what is Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is a cryptographically secure binary-style distributed application for transactions on the web. Bitcoin is meant to mimic how BitTorrent shares files, but for transaction information through a peer-to-peer network. TLDR, email for money. So much like email, where users would have an address and a password, Bitcoin users have an address, or public address, or wallet address, which is represented by this public key, the left QR code, and a password, which is private key, the right QR code. And these are generated from an elliptical curve digital signature algorithm that is applied against any large random number that is provided as an input. So a pretty simple example of that is bit address. So it's accepting my mouse movements to generate this random number. I can even get in here and just hammer on the keyboard, and boom, you have a new Bitcoin address. So this is really powerful. Your traditional bank, you'd have to go in and submit your social security number, your residence, all this stuff. They want all this kinds of information. And here, you can generate a receiving address for what is considered money, although there's an argument completely around that, whether it's commodity or currency. But needless to say, you can monetize on the web instantly without a proprietary SDK, which is amazing. And okay, so how are transactions actually secured? And they talk about all the cryptography and such. So transactions are secured by hashing the entirety of a previous transaction with the intended new owner's public key and the previous owner's private key. So it's like this whole box that's going into the next one, public key, and the owner's signature, hashed private key. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I've read the Bitcoin white paper and over. Someone may be able to correct me on that, but that's where I've gotten to. And then what is the blockchain? So how do we all agree that all these transactions happen? Because I could go behind this door, make a deal with someone, and then we both come out, and then one of them's lying, saying, he never gave me that money. So by basically shouting it out to the network, we all agree that this thing happened. So that's the idea of the blockchain. Blockchain is a public ledger for all Bitcoin transactions that have taken place. You can think of it as a distributed database. I think that's kind of like the best way to put it. You have Web 2.0 like servers, databases in one central place, and this is basically distributing that data. Bitcoin miners secure the network by collecting these transactions around the network and hashing them with timestamps into groups or blocks. And each wallet is required to have a copy of the Bitcoin blockchain, but can be provided by third-party APIs, because as it's always getting written to and the network gets bigger and bigger, you may have a blockchain that's in excess of 20, 30 gigs now, maybe, which is really, tough on, obviously, a phone or almost anything. So there are third-party providers that can give you that information. And now I get to show you Bitcoin.js. Pretty much the same concept as what I showed you with bit address. But here, I'm using the library, and I can say, okay, I want a checking account, right? Boom. Just like that, you can generate a public key and a private key. Now, obviously, you wouldn't want to expose the private key, because then anyone can just scan that into their phone, and then they have control of your money. So that wouldn't be good. But I think this is a really cool concept, because immediately ideas that come to mind are like a scavenger hunt, where everyone pays into one wallet, and then whoever gets it then gets paid out from that Bitcoin. Or a real-time sports betting application. Everyone pays into that wallet who agrees with that, and then all the losers will then lose the money in those wallets, and will be transferred to the winners of this wallet. And you can generate transactions with, or at least sign transactions. So if I had another wallet for savings, right, we have one for savings, and I copied this into the destination. It was doing this before. I know, sometimes it's been locking me out. But anyways, you can type in, send any address, and then send 20,000 Satoshis, which is the smallest unit of currency in Bitcoin. They are considering renaming that to bits to be more user-friendly. But if I hit send, it can't send because there's no Bitcoins in this wallet to spend, which makes sense. So when we look at the code, and I can explain why that is, whoops, where is, really? Okay. Projects. To do, yes, yes. See, I obviously stole the code from To Do MVC like everyone else does. Okay. So, Bitcoin service, put that there, and is it app? Control, To Do, control, yeah, okay. So, let's run through this really quick. Here's the baseline for To Do MVC, skip right past that. So, as we mentioned with bit address, you create a long random string, and then you can create a public key and a private key from that. And this Angular service really just remaps that. I've kind of just made it semantic and easy to work with. So you'd have the Bitcoin object, that encryption key, or the long random, or this is the baseline, and then you create the long random from that. And then you can get the public address, toString, and then the private is, this means wallet import format, because it really makes no sense to have a private key that you can't do anything with. You would always want to scan it. So I guess they kind of shortcutted it and just said, okay, direct to wallet import. So on the creating a key pair, we just create public and private, and we return that, and that's where you saw on the UI, the green and the red. So when you do add the to-do, it's going to push that, right? And this timeout hack is just for rendering the QR codes. And that's to render the existing ones if they're in local storage. So as I mentioned, in order to send any kind of Bitcoin, you have to have a previous transaction hash. And so basically what I did was I fed through the newly created wallet, its public address, to grab the transactions off the blockchain, and it said, there's none. I can't send you anything. So that's where that came in. So what I'm doing is just returning the promise of the data that's coming back. If there is data, then we're going to assign that previous transaction hash. Else, you have no Bitcoins. And to create a transaction, Bitcoin service, create transaction. If we look back over here, just new Bitcoin transactions. Pretty straightforward stuff. And we are going to add inputs and where in the array of the inputs they're going. Or we're going to add the hash and then say where in the array that we want to. Because someone could charge you $15 and you'll have 3 $5 bills. You're sending in multiple inputs. And the output is the address, the recipient, and how many Satoshis. I hate that it's a unit of currency. I mean, It's named after the creator. And in recent news, actually, someone hacked his account because apparently he was like a figment, you know, like this ghost character. There's like myths about this guy, basically. So there's a lot in the news going on about that. And then, so we have all this stuff set up on our transaction object. We're going to sign that transaction, and then say to which output, because for the output, you obviously have the recipient, but to keep the mining network going and incentivize them, there's a second output that you can also say, okay, kick over, you know, a little amount to those guys as well. And the more that you put in, the faster it can propagate through the network because they're incentivized to do so quicker. So when we do sign it, we're going to sign it with, as we said, with that chart with the private key. Pretty straightforward then. Oh yeah, so when we do sign it, we convert it to a hex value, and then I don't have this coded out here, but you would push that transaction to a Bitcoin node, whether that's a third-party provider or that's your own mining node, you know, just a regular post, and that's pretty much how it goes. Okay, so then yeah, for sending, so that like this is from the markup where I'm collecting, you know, the public address, the private, and those data fields. I just have one big object that says create transaction, private key. If it has, or first if it does have a previous transaction, put that in there then. The inputs, the outputs, public address, and Satoshis. And that's really it for Bitcoin.js. The overhead is just learning how Bitcoin actually works, like why these inputs are necessary, you know, how to hash these things, etc. So that's the tech side of that. So yeah, a quick review. With Bitcoin.js, you can generate a large random seed number, generate public and private keys, create transactions, sign those transactions to inputs and outputs, and serialize those transactions to then post to a node. So essentially, Bitcoin.js deals with the front end of Bitcoin and is really kind of devoid of the back end part, or the mining the nodes and propagating that out to the network. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a small data manipulation library that feels like underscore. Doesn't really do anything with the DOM. It's all related to Bitcoin, obviously. Oops. So there's a bunch of Bitcoin-based currencies because it's open source and you can fork it. So there's Litecoin, there's Dogecoin, Blackcoin, Aurora Coin, Namecoin, Darkcoin, and Coinye after Kanye West. Because obviously Kanye deserves his own coin, right? One of the funny things that the Dogecoin community did was raise funds for a NASCAR. There was someone who had no sponsorship whatsoever, and they wanted the notoriety of cryptocurrencies to get out there. And I forget what he placed in, but he did pretty well, and now I think he's also going to Talladega. So there's a bunch of funny GIFs and things out there. Definitely worth following the Dogecoin community. They're very cool. Oh, and yes, another reason. They sent the Jamaican bobsledding team to the Olympics. I kid you not, that is real. This is why the internet is awesome. So, yeah, and related to Kanye West, Coinye, he didn't approve of people making a coin after him, although I thought it would have been flattering if I were him. And he decided to sue, and then they, in turn, changed the coin logo to the gay fish from South Park. So, yeah, lots of fun to be had out there. And someone actually from the Bitcoin Foundation is launching Bitcoin nodes into space. You'll get free electricity from solar power, or from mining. There will be no laws governing its use, and a futuristic tax heaven, if you will. It's a really funny ecosystem to be a part of. So, what about Web 3.0, right? Bitcoin at its core is only a binary style application. It's just spent and unspent, zeros and ones, and that's it. So what if we implemented a programming language on the blockchain that could be evaluated in the virtual environment of any of these mining nodes? Yes. Well, now I know. So this is the dream of Ethereum and other contract or smart contract platforms like Codius, Stellar, Ripple, there's a few of them. So basically, these smart contracts are binding agreements just like paper contracts that are written in code as an application and stored on the blockchain, and the results of which will be then rewritten to the same blockchain. So you can actually have like programs that modify themselves after they get activated. This really kind of changes everything. I can't overstate that, because even Peter Thiel, who is well-known VC funding guy, gave these guys just like the free ride, like go build this as soon as you can. And what can you do with it? Let's say you can automate insurance policies, a last will and testament, marriage contracts, crowdfunding, voter registration, corporate governance, decentralized Dropbox, decentralized stock exchanges, distributed autonomous corporations. You can build companies in the cloud effectively. Like, you can build something that is almost answerable to no one. Like, they tell you to take it down, you're like, it's already out there, it's gone. This is like, BitTorrent, but in a very business-to-business, kind of orientation. And Skynet. I'm not even going to get into that, because there's some scary stuff that you could potentially do with this. But according to the new stuff that's come out, because this is all still in spec, you will be able to build these applications with JavaScript all the way through, for the smart contract layer, for the file storage part of it, and for the communications layer. So there's a lot to be seen about this. If you kind of think about any potential, way that someone could hack or attack a company, because there is a centralized IP to which that they know that they can try things against, when you apply this model to a new business, it becomes really interesting and a lot more secure. So with that, I have a bunch of links. Bitcoin.js, Bower package that I released, so you can monetize your app instantly. Bower install Bitcoin.js. The Khan Academy course is amazing. It really gives you the nuts and bolts without having to parse that white paper, which is really heady. Like I said, this is kind of like the next internet, and it has its entirely own protocol spec. CoinDesk right there is a great news resource for all things related to crypto. Brain Wallets, like another bit address. You got the white paper. Etherscriptor is this drag and drop Ethereum application builder. I think it's still in beta. Same thing with MintChalk. That's kind of like a Plunker or a CodePen for Ethereum, which is really cool. And this blog post on the decentralized web kind of really brings home where everything is projected to be heading. Yes, question?
Just pointing out that Ethereum is still in the concept stage building their platform.
Yes.
So surprisingly, there's actually another coin, Next. I don't know if you...
Yes.
They actually have a lot of the features that Ethereum raised. They raised like $50 million or something.
$20 million in like a month, yeah.
Right? Next only raised 21 Bitcoins, and they are like so far ahead right now.
The one takeaway though is that Next is proprietary.
Huh?
Proprietary. It's not open source from what I understand,
Well,
right?
No, it is open source.
Next is open source.
The thing is that the reason why Next didn't do open source is because Bitcoin was open source. You have all these copycat coins that just copy Bitcoin's features. The way Next is doing it, they purposely put bugs in the system, so even if you copied it, you gotta be able to know how to fix it.
That's evil.
Exactly what they have. Because they just released a decentralized marketplace just like a month ago. Yeah. So basically, it's a decentralized Silk Road. Now, that's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
In the coming year, they're taking it insane right now.
So this is all recorded, by the way. I don't know if you want to talk about
this is so much fun. Yeah. Yes.
How energy efficient is to use Ethereum or JavaScript to use Bitcoin?
Well, Ethereum is issuing their own version of a coin. Like, it's a completely separate blockchain, application. From what I understand, because of, they're trying to set up decentralized exchanges, that you will be able to translate, the ownership between them, but they're effectively two separate platforms. Like Ethereum and Next, they're like Bitcoin 2.0. So yeah, they're kind of like apples and oranges a little bit.
And also check out multigateway.com. That's one of
Multi-gateway.
the solutions to a Mt. Gox situation.
Yeah.
Where it's a decentralized coin exchange, where there's no central party dealing with your coins.
There you go. I thought that was still in progress, that they were still trying to solve like the order book and like.
No, they actually fixed it. It's working.
There's like an entire world
Yes.
of all of this that I, for one, am not a part
It's
of.
the next level. It's seriously the next
And
level.
I feel like these dips into the the dips of my toes into the water are very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So much on it.
So it is the Web 3.0. Any other questions?
Do you mine Bitcoin yourself?
I do have a cloud miner. Basically, there are a bunch of companies that provide sort of like an AWS, box that will mine Bitcoin for you. Because the overhead of building your own miner with like a GPU, it's kind of gotten away from one single person being able to do it.
Not efficient anymore.
Yeah, it's not efficient anymore. It's an arms race, basically.
You should use ASIC.
Yeah.
With F-sharp or closure.
Yeah, you had mentioned, I hadn't heard the F-sharp part of that,
I
but yes.
mentioned that because he mentioned that.
Ah, yes.
So-
ASIC miners are the way to go.
So I think there are some other questions, but we will take that to the bar afterwards.
Yes. And I want to say thank you, and go decentralize all the things. See you at the bar.